Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the reaction video where today we're going to be kind of diverging from the music for a bit because a channel that I've kind of followed for quite a while now, TierZoo have recently uploaded a new video and we're going to react to that today. Are Centipedes OP? Now a little bit about myself, my background. At college I studied animal care, like animal care zoology, that kind of stuff. So when it comes to the kind of animals aspects in life, I reckon I'm up there. I know a decent bit of knowledge. I myself, I probably have too many animals to be honest with you. Back there I've got one axolotl in kind of recovery in a separate tank. I've got giant African land snails, my living room, bearded dragon, and another axolotl enclosure, and yeah, there'll be more animals coming at some point. So today we're going to be reacting to Are Centipedes OP by TierZoo. I have to say I think they are. My house in Italy, we get no. Is it centipedes or no. We get silverfish. No, ignore me, I'm absolutely yapping. So, but yeah, centipedes are OP. I'm pretty sure so. They're kind of, an apex insect, right? They're venomous, and you just don't want to fuck with them. They're creepy as fuck. But let's see. Let's find out. Let's find out the definitive answer. Are they OP? Let's find out. If you guys know, watched the TierZoo video before as well, they will show like the animals like in real life, and sometimes people find that kind of stuff disturbing. So I guess I'll give a little warning about that as well. Let's get into it. Basically as well, sorry I forgot to explain, they kind of look at the animal kingdom as if it's a video game, which is a fucking cool concept.
Centipedes are without a doubt one of the most terrifying builds in the entire game.
Not disagreeing.
They're also one of the oldest. They're part of an ancient lineage called myriapods, which were the first builds to ever unlock the ability to breathe air, way back during the Silurian expansion. Their many legs and venomous fangs make for a fearsome display for any player looking to challenge them in combat. But has their ancient strategy held up in the face of the immense power creep the game has seen? Is having dozens upon dozens of legs much of an improvement over just having a few? Let's take a closer look at the stats and abilities of centipedes and millipedes, and ultimately decide where they fall on the tier list.
Sometimes you look at an animal and you think, it is fucking crazy, how do they exist? And then you got to think, they've been around longer than we have, how do we exist? Why do we not look like them? It's crazy.
First, let's take a look at their stats and abilities. And for this section, we'll show both the centipede and millipede base stats. Both centipedes and millipedes have...
Okay, so we're doing both in this video. No, I forgot to unpause it, my bad.
We'll show both the centipede and millipede base stats. Both centipedes and millipedes have solid defensive stats. They're both part of the arthropod faction.
Right, let's have a look at their stats. So, centipede, millipede. Intelligence, obviously, for an insect, intelligence is almost always going to be incredibly low. Power, centipede a lot higher. Defense, millipede takes, the millipede looks like more bulkier, doesn't it? So, mobility, the centipede is a lot higher. Look at it, the difference in the legs. And probably like the sections, I can't remember what they're called. But it's got like one pair of legs per section, whereas the millipede gets two per, well, not even two per section, but it gets more legs basically. Which you think would more legs go faster, which is absolutely not the case, unfortunately. HP, yeah, it's more of a tank basically. Millipede is more of a tank, centipede is more of a kind of like a rogue. And stealth, yeah, centipede's going to be higher. Right, let's continue.
And inherit the exoskeletal armor perk, granting them dramatically higher base defense compared to similarly sized soft-bodied invertebrates, such as slugs or velvet worms. Their chitinous exoskeleton can deflect most basic attacks from players at or below their weight class. There is a meaningful difference between the two on this front, though. Millipedes have interlocking articulated plates, leaving essentially zero gaps in their armor other than on the underside where all their leg joints are. Centipedes, on the other hand, do have gaps in their armor.
That's why the millipede's defense is higher.
Particularly...
But, it's not always about a good defense. You have to have a good offense as well.
in between segments on their sides between their legs. Unlike millipedes, which have their leg joints attached on their underside, centipede leg joints are located on the side of the centipede, making these weak points much more difficult to defend. This results in a much higher defense stat for millipedes, but the trade-off is pretty obvious when you look at their other major difference, their mobility stat. Millipedes have a speed stat that is only slightly higher than that of a snail.
Big up a snail. African and snails. That's where it's at, guys. Coolest pet anyone will ever own. There's no point in arguing with it, it's just a fact.
Which is incredibly low given that snails don't even have legs. Centipedes, with their less restrictive armor, are some of the quickest moving arthropods in the game, able to quickly weave in and around cover and scale walls in record time. Their quick, twitchy movement makes them tough to pin down, and because of their flat shape, they have a very easy time running for cover if threatened by a player in a higher weight class. But of course, the primary reason they're invested in a higher movement speed is because it synergizes well with the last major difference they have for millipedes, their power stat. Millipedes have no offensive moves at all. When confronted with an adversary, millipedes will respond by attempting to lock down their defenses even more tightly than they already are, in hopes that the aggressive player will simply give up.
See, I didn't know millipedes had no form of attack. I would have thought they would have had something. Because I'm pretty sure there's some poisonous millipedes, isn't there? I'm pretty sure, because I think I used to have bumblebee millipedes, I'm pretty sure it was, and I'm pretty sure they contain traces of cyanide in them. So they've got to be some kind of poison.
Curl up into a ball in order to guard their.
But obviously that's not really a defense. Yeah, the poison only is in effect if they're going to eat you, if you're already being consumed. So it's kind of more like, you know, what is it, the perking card where you drop a grenade when you die. Yeah, it's cool and all, but you've had to die to do that.
Small number of weak points, and may also begin secreting noxious and or toxic chemicals to dissuade persistent
What was I
predators
saying?
from risking poison damage. Centipedes may attempt to curl and take some hits, but more often than not, they'll opt to either flee or rely on their powerful offense to
They've got that
substitute
fight
for
or flight
lackluster
response.
defense. The centipede's jaws, which are really their two front legs, have been modified into hypodermic daggers, able to pierce armor and inflict venom to deal devastating damage. The rest of their stats are pretty similar, as most myriapods sport fairly generic mid-level camo.
I'm just finding myself vibing to the music as well.
Nothing too impressive, but enough to beat the average player's passive perception as long as they remain motionless. Both centipedes and millipedes sometimes sport vibrant aposematic coloration as well, forgoing stealth and replacing it with intimidation, flexing how toxic their poison or venom is. And
So it's
as
like
a
poison
fairly
dart
ancestral
frogs.
lineage of arthropods, it's no surprise their intelligence stat is quite low,
Yeah.
as they were introduced to the game during a time before intelligence builds were even remotely viable, and have opted to refine their core strategy rather than respec into a higher intelligence build. Unfortunately, this locks them out of the higher level perception perks like binocular vision and compound eyes, forcing them to mainly rely on their most basic options for detecting enemies, like simple eyes, chemoreception, and tremor sense. As far as other unique abilities go, myriapods don't have all that much. This is a little unfair because when they were first patched into the game, their most important unique ability was their ability to breathe on dry land. However, as the game's meta has progressed, air breathing has become one of the most common abilities in the game, making myriapods.
So kind of what I'm getting at so far is they're good, but they're in the wrong time period. They'd be good back when there was no other kind of predators and stuff. So what basically we're saying is we need an upgrade. We need DLC, a new update. But yeah, they're still good today, but they're good in their own weight class. As soon as we go out of the weight class, there's no chance.
Pods much less unique, and honestly a bit obsolete. One other special ability they do have is auto-mimicry. It is quite difficult to tell at a glance which end of a centipede is the head, as their back end also looks almost identical. In fact, in some ways, the back end even functions as a head, as it also has highly sensitive structures similar to antennae.
Almost! Boy, that was close. Hey, what's up for today, Nettie?
The reason this matters
Lovely
is that
ad.
the best way to disable and defeat a centipede is to attack its head first, before it has a chance to respond. If an attacking player has a 50% chance to accidentally attack the wrong end, that gives centipedes a chance to counterattack for massive damage, or escape. So those are the base stats and abilities of the Myriapod. But how do these traits actually stack up against the current meta? While their stats seem solid at first glance, the game's power
Poor little gecko. Poor little gecko.
creep has severely limited their viability. Expansion after expansion, the devs have expanded access to the Myriapod's formerly exclusive abilities, and introduced new abilities to the game which function as counterplay options against Centipedes and Millipedes, allowing newer builds to more efficiently exploit their
Come on, Centipedes, they're beating you at your own game now.
weaknesses. For example, the introduction of the beak attribute dramatically improved the bird build's matchup against Centipedes, as the disjointed hitbox makes the risk of a counterattack less of a concern. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first discuss the Centipede. The Centipede's bite is one of the strongest in its weight class, enough to make some snake mains jealous. Compared against the power of a scorpion's sting, the bite has higher raw damage and armor-piercing potential, but weaker venom.
So they can take on some snakes? Snakes, what are we doing? That's embarrassing.
Strongest in its weight class, enough to make some snake mains jealous. Compared against the power of a scorpion's sting, the bite has higher raw damage and armor-piercing potential, but weaker venom. By itself, this makes it one of the most formidable attacking moves in the entire arthropod faction. So with that in mind, the viability of the Centipede really comes down to how reliable the rest of the Centipede's game plan is at enabling the use of this vicious attack. And unfortunately, this is where the cracks start to show in this ancient build's game plan. When this move connects, the damage it deals is death.
Right, we're only halfway through the video, guys, but like and subscribe. No. Well, I mean, yes, sorry. What are we saying so far? Let's try and answer the question, are Centipedes / Millipedes OP? I'm going to have to say no, based on the information we've received so far. Like I said, we're only halfway through, so I don't know if he's going to be, he's buttering us up for the old switcheroo, but it's just, it sounds like they're not it at the moment. Let's see.
Devastating, but landing a strike with
Like,
the
subscribe.
Centipede's bite is easier said than done. For starters, while the Centipede's base movement speed is quite solid, it lacks the surprise burst mobility that so many predators rely on. Centipedes just sort of scurry around, hoping that they'll eventually catch their player off guard. But as long as you remain vigilant, Centipede attacks are about as predictable and telegraphed as they come. Centipedes have pretty low stealth and make no attempts to conceal themselves as they approach a target. So as long as your character's passive perception is halfway decent, you should have plenty of opportunity to react and escape before they get within
Good button
striking
combo.
range. Their poor vision also undermines their ability to pursue prey as they flee, even though they easily have the speed to chase them down. The only mistake players commonly make is attempting to stand their ground and fight them off, rather than taking the easy way out and fleeing before they can deal any damage. In addition to their lack of ability to ambush, Centipedes also have such a low intelligence stat that fairly
See, obviously they're saying that they've got a lack of an ability to ambush, which is completely opposite to what I've always thought. I always thought they were probably great ambush hunters. But I guess I was wrong.
rudimentary stealth tactics, things like basic camouflage and hiding behind partial cover, are highly effective against them, and can cause an aggressive
He's just
centipede
up there,
to
mate. Come
completely
on.
miss their opportunity to attack as they run right past you. It's worth noting that one subclass of centipedes does have the compound eyes perk and also sports an even higher base movement speed, one of the fastest in the entire arthropod faction. But these centipedes, called house centipedes, have much lower damage output and defense stats.
I know earlier I said I get these guys in Italy and I thought it was silverfish. I was wrong. That thing on screen, that's the one I have in Italy.
And mostly just prey on low-tier insects like silverfish and crickets. Even in their own niche of rush-down arthropod builds, centipedes have been power-crept by the Solifugic, also known as the sun spider or camel spider, which is significantly faster on foot, and although it isn't venomous, the raw damage this thing can put out absolutely shreds through anything caught in its path. The sun spider definitely
termites
deserves
or
a video
ants.
though, so I'll save further analysis for later. Switching over to millipedes, things still aren't great, but they do fare a bit better.
Do you know what? I've got a spare terrarium back there. I want a millipede. Obviously, that terrarium I have is not suitable for a millipede. It's not big enough. But I would love a pet millipede.
Millipedes are highly resistant to enemy attacks, there's no denying that. Few builds in the game are better equipped to tank a ton of hits from an onslaught of attackers. However, the millipede's main method of deterring predators, its toxin, is pretty underwhelming. It doesn't deal damage quick enough to really deter persistent predators.
Sorry for the yawn there, guys. What the fuck are we witnessing? Those ants are OP.
Within the insect faction, most arthropods have solid poison resistance stats, so these types of toxins tend to really only make a difference against bird, amphibian, and rodent mains. If millipedes could spec into a more potent chemical defense, similar to the bombardier beetle, they might be a bit more dangerous to attack. But as it stands, assuming you can handle a small amount of poison damage, it can be worth it to continue attacking and fishing for a crit, because even the millipede's armor isn't completely invincible. This weakness at least doesn't impede their primary objective, as even though they have just as terrible of eyesight as centipedes, or potentially even worse in the case of some, this doesn't stop them from easily finding the moss.
I just think millipedes are so cool. They're freaky, don't get me wrong, but they're cool.
And detritus that they need to live on. In addition, some millipedes do opt for a different style of defense, with barbed bristles that are highly effective at deterring ants. This is less effective against birds and rodents, but much better against other arthropods. So while both have counterplay, millipedes have options when it comes to adapting to their local meta.
Like, just look how like hypnotic the legs move.
So while both have counterplay,
This tickles my brain.
millipedes have options when it comes to adapting to their local meta. One major area I think both centipedes and millipedes could improve in is making better use of their abundance of legs. Centipedes have only 2 modified pairs of limbs, their front legs, which have been modified into fangs, and their back legs, which have been modified into antennae. That still leaves several dozen other legs that they could probably afford to convert into more useful appendages. Having similar jaw-like legs on their back end would synergize well with their auto-mimicry ability, and make it so that there's no end you could attack safely. And for the millipede, although they aren't as combat-focused, I think they would still benefit from speccing into some other utility options, like for example, fossorial legs to allow them to dig underground. They have a lot of options, but right now, I genuinely think that myriapods are barely managing to do with dozens of legs what most arthropods do with only a few. Ultimately, I do think both builds have been massively power-crept and cannot justify putting them any higher than the low tiers. Terrifying as a centipede
It hurts, but it had to be done.
I actually think it fares even worse than the scorpion, given how simple and easily countered its game plan is once you know the matchup. They're going firmly in F tier. Millipedes do fare better for sure, as their tanky, toxic defensive strategy is tricky to overcome. But with the right strategy or with a significant size advantage, millipedes present very little challenge. In addition, poisonous millipedes suffer from their own success in that some higher intelligence builds, like the
Sometimes I just love the pictures they show on this. Let's go back to that one.
But with the right strategy or with a significant size advantage, millipedes present very little challenge. In addition, poisonous millipedes suffer from their own success.
DJ Millipede, suffering from success. That's great.
In that some higher intelligence builds, like lemurs and monkeys, actually deliberately trigger their toxic defense ability and then rub the toxin on their fur to gain a temporary bug repellent buff, before either
That's smart. Well played.
discarding or eating the millipede. So, while I think you could definitely make the argument that they at least make it out of F tier and belong in D tier, I don't think they belong any higher than that.
Fair
Whether
enough.
you want to play as a fast-moving damage dealer or a slow, toxic tank, there are much better options available to you than centipedes or millipedes. Myriapods simply have too many gaps in their defense, both in their physical armor and their game plan overall. You can be as careful as possible, but if your defenses have obvious exploits, you'll always be vulnerable. This is true not just for survival in the wilderness, but also for your personal data online.
Okay,
If you
very
find yourself
very smooth. Okay then guys, that's going to be my... Actually, hold on, let me just make sure there's no more.
Constantly barraged with spam shields are already well, is to use today's is on where you're perfect to incognito
Okay.
and click off of their
Oh, that was it. Okay then guys, that's going to be my reaction to Centipedes OP by TierZoo, and as the kind of definitive answer in that video was, yeah, they're not OP. They used to be back in the day, but they've not, updated. They've not modernised with the times. So we just F and D tier. If you guys enjoy this reaction and want more TierZoo reactions, or more kind of reactions that aren't music videos as well, let me know in the comments down below. Yeah, I'm definitely, I'll definitely be doing more TierZoo reactions because it is a channel I enjoy, and they're fairly regular at uploading as well. So we can definitely do more TierZoo. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, follow TierZoo, all that lovely stuff. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Have a nice day.